tonight we'll be talking about imposter syndrome. I'll let these four fabulous ladies introduce themselves, starting with Catherine.
So hi, I'm Catherine Eade from Up and Thrive. I'm a coach and consultant, and I support female leaders and business owners to grow their business from the inside out.
Hi, I'm Hayley Farrell. I'm Head of Family at Brody Jackson Cantor Solicitors. I'm really passionate about access to justice and making a positive difference.
Fabulous.
Hi, I'm Sarah McCartney. I run a marketing consultancy business called SLMC Consulting, where I am passionate about people's customer proposition and helping them stand out from the crowd.
Love it. Mandy?
Hi, I'm Mandy Sinclair. I'm an independent business advisor and mentor, and I'm also a co-active coach, and I'm passionate about championing people to live their best life.
Love that. Fabulous. So, as I mentioned, we're here tonight to discuss imposter syndrome. I think the first question is the most obvious question. People listening to this are going to want to know, what is imposter syndrome? So, Catherine, you go first.
Okay, so I think for me, imposter syndrome comes in a number of different forms and for different people, but essentially it's really about that inability to really believe in your success, and that success is legitimately yours and that you own it.
Yeah.
But as I say, I think it can play itself out in a number of different ways. It can play it out as that kind of thing around the sorts of things we might say to ourselves, like, I must do everything myself, because I don't, in order to achieve and be successful, I need to do everything.
Yeah.
Or everything I do needs to be 100% perfect. So I must, I can't put anything out there that might not be quite at 100%. So it comes out I think in different ways in different people.
Yeah.
But it's essentially, what is it, those things that hold us back from really putting ourselves out there.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. From my perspective, I don't work with people per se with imposter syndrome, but I think Catherine, Mandy, you guys, you see people going through this every single day in different ways. What would you say are some of the different aspects that you've seen of how this shows itself?
So I think one of the biggest things is it can cause you to just doubt yourself in everything that you do. So you're constantly second guessing. It can cause so much stress and anxiety. Before you walk in a room, you've made up a story about what everybody's thinking about what you're about to say, and that it can't possibly be good enough because you're not good enough. And that can spill over out of your professional life into your personal life, and it can mean by the time you get to your personal life, you've just got no reserves left to deal with it. And I often find that somebody would present to me as a client in overwhelm, and when you dig underneath it, the imposter syndrome has cut across all of their life, and the perfectionism that Catherine talked about is kicking in, and just this constant, their brain never stops, and it's exhausting, absolutely exhausting.
So as far as tips and tools to overcome, I mean, Sarah, 1996, entered in a male-dominated environment. Absolutely. Imposter syndrome must have been going crazy. How did you deal?
I think it was a strange one, because I don't think in 1996 things had titles like imposter syndrome. I think for me it wasn't so much imposter syndrome, but as a 21-year-old woman going into a male-dominated industry, it was, I have to be better. I have to be able to stand head and shoulders against these guys, otherwise I am going to get ripped to shreds. So it was, for me, it was very much, I have to be the best that I can be, or better. I have to know my stuff. I have to really be able to showcase, to prove to them that I should be there, and I have a position there, and I'm allowed to be there. Where I suppose nowadays, if somebody said that, we'd be saying, well, you had imposter syndrome. But it's whether, was it imposter syndrome, or was it that woman going into in 96, a very, very male industry?
Dominated industry.
But it was great. I loved it. I worked in that industry for 22 years, and I'm still here to tell the tale. But I loved it. Good team around is key.
Such an experience is going to create this kind of strong, ready for it kind of woman. But just because you then become a very strong, capable, accomplished, I can do this because I've done it. Do you still suffer from imposter syndrome?
I don't suffer as much now, although I do have days when I have off days where, you know, the phone rings when you're not expecting and you think, ooh. But I think for me, I went through all my career, and then the last few years I worked with somebody that was very critical.
Yeah.
And that, I think, brought out an underlying imposter syndrome in me, not because I initially doubted myself, but the situation and how they were led me to question everything and led me to question myself. And I think that brought out a lot of self-doubt in me that I've then had to deal with, which is where I'm not imposter syndrome now running my business. I'm quite comfortable, but I recognise now when I'm having that off day. And I think it's because through other people's insecurities, they push that onto you, and that perpetuates that self-doubt in you. If it wasn't there before, it starts to come out in you. So by people saying, you know, that table's not brown, it's green, no, it's brown. You know, when people start to question and almost manipulate the situation, it brings out that self-doubt in you, because you, at some point, it clicks over to, actually, I thought I knew what I was doing, to now you're making me question myself.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, where it's a different side of imposter syndrome, because it's not how you initially feel about yourself. It's the circumstances around you that are making that.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I think it can present itself to people at all different ages, in all different scenarios. I mean, Hayley, yours is going to university. You talk about imposter syndrome in this instance, and it's like, so that's what, teenage years?
Yeah, I was 18 and I was the first one in my family to go to uni, and I was going to do law in a very academic university. And from kind of day one, day two, I realised that most of my peers, their parents were QCs, judges, owned law firms, went to private school, and I felt real imposter syndrome. Why am I here? What am I going to do? How am I going to get there? I think the positive I will take from it is that, one, I put on my best Scouse accent when someone said, what does your mum and dad do? I said, well, my dad's a lorry driver, mum works in a shop, and I didn't go to private school, and what kind of thing. Best Scouse accent. Well, they think I was Scouse anyway. But actually, the one thing that I will take from that is something that you were saying, Sarah. It made me work really hard, because I thought, I'm not going to get any easy route into law.
Yeah.
I've got to do this myself.
Yeah.
So in some ways, identifying that from an early age, I thought, actually, you've got to work hard.
Yeah. 100%. Okay, I've got a question. This is for anyone. What is the difference between imposter syndrome and inner critic, or are they both the same thing? Like, what's the difference? What's the separation?
I think imposter syndrome is just one scenario where your inner critic's playing. I think, to me, the inner critic is the broad term, and imposter syndrome is what gets applied when it's impacting you in your role. And as Catherine says, you can't own your success.
Yeah.
Personally, that's what I believe, and I don't believe it ever truly goes away.
Yeah.
You know, I consider myself quite a strong person now who's done a lot of self-development and everything, but I have mine. But I find that it can help me now. I'm able to spot it.
Yeah.
Catches me out sometimes, but generally I'm able to spot it. And I'm like, okay, is there anything else I need to do? No, I'm good, let's go anyway. Or actually, yes, that's something else I could do. So I think if you learn to almost embrace it and accept that it's there, it can make you the best you can be.
Yeah.
But if you allow it to hold you back and wait for it to pass, it's like your inner critic. If you always believe it's right, then it'll hold you small and you won't ever do what you want.
Some people are going to be sitting there saying, embrace it, easier said than done. So how am I going to do that? So has anyone got any tips on how they did that? How do you embrace your imposter syndrome?
Can I just come in on Mandy's point, because I just want to just to take that one stage further, really, because I think if you are, you know, ambitious, talented, interested in personal growth, then you are going to constantly wanting to push yourself into new areas. And if you're constantly, you know, and that's where we grow, and it's human nature that when we push ourselves into a new area, we are going to have days when we doubt ourselves.
Yeah, definitely.
And when this, whether it's your inner critic or your imposter syndrome, comes into play. So I think for me, one of the big, you know, one of the big questions are, if you're not suffering any of this, are you actually too firmly in your comfort zone and it's time to take the step out?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. And in terms of your sort of strategy around that, I think there's specific strategies that you can do depending on what you're facing in terms of your imposter syndrome. But in terms of that sort of balance for me, and in terms of what is, you know, if you're going to pay attention to your imposter syndrome, sometimes it's about really asking that, what does it need? And being perhaps the biggest thing is just about being being a little bit kinder to ourselves.
Yeah.
That for me would be the overarching strategy. I think there's other strategies in there too. But it's recognising where you're at, why you're at that point, what's it telling you, and working with it rather than ignoring it or working against it.
Yeah, I like that. I think what you just said about, you know, living cautiously almost, like you don't do anything, that resonates so much. Have you read the quote by J.K. Rowling where she says, being so careful that you might as well have not lived at all? And I just think it sums it up, because it's like weighing it up. So stay in my comfort zone, never suffer imposter syndrome, never feel the fear, but then never, you know, be the best version of yourself. What is it's just like, I would encourage people to go out and feel the imposter syndrome, like go and do so much that makes you feel the imposter syndrome, ringing in your ears, thudding like in your do you know what I mean? Sweat down your back.
Running.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Let's encourage each other to feel it. Are you feeling scared? Yes, that means we're going to grow. It's like high five that feeling. Do you know what I mean? Let's celebrate it and encourage it, motivate it. Let's look for it. Like, where are you? Because if you're not here today, obviously I'm not going to learn nothing new today. So it's like, how I suppose it's learning to harness it, and that's where the professionals come in. If you feel like it's so over the line and it's really, you know, making you feel awful, I suppose the answer to that is reach out. Reach out to those who can give you some real good structures, real good exercises, and, you know, kind of grow you through it.
Yeah, so talking about it, yes, talking about it to a professional, but just talking about it, you know, engaging in sorts of conversations like this with women, women you admire, women that you see as being successful, whatever definition of that success is, but engaging those sorts of people in that conversation, I think, is really powerful. Getting feedback in terms of really kind of actually saying, you know, what do you think this is it limiting me? How do you think it might be limiting me? I think that's needs to be part of the conversation as well.
I think trying to as well in some ways where you can is reframe. So when you're about to do something that really scares you, you'll feel fear. But when you ask an athlete when they're just about to do a big race how you feel, or a footballer, it's excited. And actually it's the same sort of thing, but it's about thinking, oh, this is exciting. But it is a bit scary, so scary's good.
It's taking control a bit, I think, isn't it? It's taking control of yourself and having that courage to say, I'm gonna go for it. But I think when you've got that underlying self-doubt, asking for feedback and things like you've said, I wonder if that's where women of all, you know, we said on the way in, didn't we? There's an element of we're all successful business women, so there'll be a lot of women listening to this going, oh, they run a business and they have this. Like, you know, we're supposed to be the strong people that are perfect and never have a bad day in our lives, and it's quite to the contrary. And I think it's getting people to feel comfortable to be able to have that conversation and reflect about it, but then sometimes, you know, to ask for feedback when you're feeling vulnerable in a way with that self-doubt can be quite a big thing, I think, because it perpetuates, doesn't it? And you've got to, there's somehow you have to learn to step back, you know, and look at yourself and reflect in yourself and say, do you know what, like you did with university, I'm here, you got there, nobody gave you that place, it wasn't a gift, you didn't win it in a prize, you earned your way and learned your way to that position the same as everybody else did. So you've got to be able to think, step back and reflect and say, I did 22 years in construction for a reason. If I was rubbish, I wouldn't have lasted 2 minutes. So you have to step back and go, do you know what? I might be feeling a bit out of my comfort zone, but Absolutely.
Yeah. I have a great phrase that I love, which is facts are friends. And I think so often we get caught up in the emotion of something. When you actually try and writing it down really helps.
Yeah.
So if you actually write down the facts of the situation, like in your situation, I'm here, I'm studying, I'm getting these grades, I'm doing this. You deserve to be there, and that can help just get that slight separation from the emotional side, as if it's somebody else. So facts are friends is one of my mantras. Whenever anything starts to feel a bit overwhelmed, what are the facts? Write it down.
Yeah.
I think as you were saying, Sarah, as well, sometimes we have to remind ourselves of our value. Now, sometimes we can't see what our value is, but we can see what value we're giving other people. And if you think about that, well, actually, I don't think I'm so great, but I've done something to help you, and that can just really make you think, well, actually, if I'm helping you, I must be doing something okay.
You must be, absolutely.
Yeah.
I like that. So it's almost like before you stay into the zone of, I'm afraid, it's all, this is all, I don't belong here, whatever, go into your why. Why was you making this decision to make this move in the first place? Because that will usually be bigger than any of the fear or any of the imposter syndrome that you're experiencing. So your why is going to potentially pull you through. It's like a kind of, it's that thing that will make you go, oh yeah, okay, take focus off what we're scared of, and suddenly we're focusing on why we're coming here in the first place, and then we're going to go and carry on anyway. It's like feel the fear and do it anyway, before imposter syndrome. Because imposter syndrome is just it is another strand of fear, isn't it? So if you can face your fear, face your imposter syndrome, say hello to your inner critic. I loved what we done the other day when we actually gave it a name. So it's like,
I find that really powerful.
So talk about that.
Yeah, so I find that so many people are so used to feeling like this that when you start working with them as a coach and you try and sort of help them understand that it's their beliefs and it's things they're choosing to do. If you're like, it's just me, I'll always put myself down, I'll always feel like this. And I'm like, no, you don't. And one of the things I find really powerful is to personify your inner critic, and give them a name, give them a personality, and it really helps to then just get yourself that little bit of space. And as you were saying outside, you can sort of have a bit of a fight with them and kind of go, I hear you, I know what you want, but you're not going to have that today because I'm going to go do this because this is really important to me. So mine's called Deirdre. She's very disapproving. She has very pursed lips.
She has big glasses, like.
She does. She absolutely does. And she tucks and shakes. And she's, for much of my life said, you'll never be good enough. What will people think? And there's so many things like that for years really impacted me. And I thought it was just me. And then when I was able to kind of create Deirdre, I can tell Deirdre to do one now, and I can have these great conversations with her. And I have, Deirdre shutting up stuff. So one of my things is bright colours. So, because for years it was like, well, what do you look like? What are people going to think? And so, I have a bright green coat that I know Deirdre hates, and I love putting it on because that's when I'm going to go do something really good.
I love it. Has anyone else got an identity to their inner critic?
So I have one. So with my balancing and this idea that you kind of you have your imposter, but you also have your sort of positive, and both need feeding. So I have Kick-Ass Catherine, and she's kind of out there doing it and living the dream.
I love Kick-Ass Catherine.
And then I also have Keep Quiet Catherine, and she's the kind of one. No one really wants to listen to you. Keep yourself quiet. Just get on, do what you do. And you have to kind of work with both. And sometimes Keep Quiet Catherine is okay. She's all right company, because she brings me down. She keeps me calmer. I do a lot of stuff where I'm kind of I guess part of my success is about being out there. And being out there and making an impact and kind of talking. And so sometimes I actually need to listen to Keep Quiet Catherine, because she keeps me sane. Because if I kept going constantly at the level that Kick-Ass Catherine wants me to work at, I probably wouldn't be here now.
She's a good leveler.
She's a good leveler. She is. So it's kind of it's recognising that actually these roles do have, both of these roles have a point to play.
Anybody else want to share theirs?
Well, I have to say, so mine's only been recently created.
Since Saturday's
thanks to
workshop.
yeah. And I don't know why. All this thing about Marge Simpson kept coming into my head. But that did disapproving.
Yeah.
So now Marge.
Marge.
So when Marge has appeared, we can quiet Marge, push Marge. And I found it actually really helpful to give it a bit of a character. I really did, to separate.
What
It's
about you,
interesting,
Sarah?
isn't it? Well, I don't have a name for my inner critic, but we were talking outside, and I quite like the film Inside Out because it gives all the people in your head a face
Yeah.
and a name, and I know it's a kids' film, but and it's great for kids to understand when they get frustrated and everything. But I think as adults, for me, being able to go, you know, okay, and sort of soften it almost.
Yeah.
But no, I've never really named it, but I do have a band on my wrist for my overthinking.
Oh,
So my friend said I had to wear a band, so it doesn't get pinged very often now. But yeah, it's
And does it work?
Yeah,
Tip?
yeah, tip of the day.
Yeah.
And just because sometimes you need to be pinged
So
back
perfect.
into
Yeah.
reality, and I guess if I put a name to it,
Yeah.
you know, and said, you know, shut up. I
Yeah.
haven't, you know, I'd like an off switch. That would be really good. But yeah, putting a name to it, I think, is a good strategy. But I've never named my inner critic. But the band for the overthinking and over worrying, you know, phone call comes in. Why should I doubt why they've rang me? Why should I autopilot go to? Have I done something
Yeah.
wrong? What have I done? So I have the band for that as opposed to a name. So
Yeah.
yeah, a bit different.
See, I also find it useful. I've shared mine with some of my friends and my colleagues. So at times they will say to me, "Hello, Deirdre." Because they can't hear
No
her
good.
I have a WhatsApp group with some of my coaching colleagues, and they will call me out, and that can be really helpful because particularly as I've changed careers, it's really interesting that. Obviously, I've been doing a lot of firsts in the last year, and I've suddenly gone from an industry I knew really well into something new, and so she's been very active, but she's also been active in a very clever and different way.
Yeah.
There was times when I persuaded myself it was just me getting used to my new career, and actually having other people pointing out to Deirdre. I'm like, oh no, it is Deirdre. What am I doing? Go over that, and it's been really helpful. So. I think the more we talk about it, the better and the more normal it becomes, and the easier it is to take those steps out of our comfort zone.
Yeah.
Because it just feels safer if you've got other people around you. As well.
Yeah.
Having a good team around you is key, isn't it? I said that I did I do a lot of talks about becoming an entrepreneur, and I always say to people, it's really, really hard, and I suppose you can take it to any sort of day-to-day life. It's really hard, and you will have days when you're on the ground, and you will have days when you're flying, and it's having those people around you that are supportive but constructive, so they're not going to sugarcoat everything for you, but are actually going to come and say, hey, hang on a minute, Deirdre's come out, or yeah, you know, you need just have a look at this, or think about it a different way. And I think having, you know, from an entrepreneur's perspective, I say that to people, and it just resonates back to personally that I have coaches and mentors. I coach and mentor as well, but I have coaches and mentors that I work with, and they're not necessarily in that profession. They're just people that I know. If I talk to Malcolm, he'll say this. If I talk to Bev, she'll say that. And it's having those people that you respect that will pull you back into line in a way that, you know, I think is really, really important to balance you and level you up.
And that's a really great point you've made when talking about the mentoring there. Is in work, we've created a mentoring scheme, it's been absolutely fantastic, and I'm a mentor and I'm a mentee, and I know that, you know, if I speak to my mentor and say I'm having a bit of imposter syndrome, and she'll talk me absolutely through it, and she's very honest, and I'll just go away and think, but also on the flip side, if you're actually mentoring somebody and they're talking about things that resonate with you, to be authentic and say, do you know what? That's normal. How are we going to fix it? When you're helping someone else try and fix it, you're also helping yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's so true. I think it as well, staying in the moment. So when we get into that imposter syndrome kind of place, do you notice how quickly you can catastrophize? Everything is so much bigger. It's like there needs to come a point where you just go, stop now, stop. I've heard people who use the word change. They can feel it coming and they'll say out loud change because it kind of, we're back in the present moment now. Well, let's get real. That's not going to happen. You know, this isn't as bad as it seems. Chill, like take a breath, take some silence, be silent for a sec, and then we'll go again. So I think staying present, identifying the imposter syndrome, maybe giving it an actual identity, a name or whatever. Having accountability buddies who can say to you, hello, you know, we see, and stop. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Which Catherine's coming out today.
These are all massive tools for us to use every day, and for people listening to try. Have a go giving it an identity, and have a go at having a stop word. It could be change, could be stop, whatever. But further to that, to bring it to an end, let's all go round and give a tip. What is a helpful tip that's helped you that you'd suggest for other people watching in order to combat this imposter syndrome? Starting with you, Catherine.
Be kind, be compassionate.
Yeah.
So just, you know, if your Deirdre is at max on a day, you know, what does Deirdre need today? Does she just need a bit of a hug?
Yeah.
And a bit of a, it's all right, Deirdre.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm with you today.
Yeah.
And maybe
Rather than beating
today
yourselves up.
that's just where I need to be.
Yeah.
And tomorrow I'll be.
Kick ass, Catherine.
Tomorrow I'll be back in my green coat. Or whatever it is. Yeah. But for me, it's that big piece around. Yeah. Be kind. If you can't be kind to yourself, then you know who else is going to be kind to you?
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
that's a really good place to start for me.
For me, it's going back to remember your value, and something that I find really helps me. If you've ever had some nice feedback from somebody, whether it be an email or a text, what have you, is keep them in a little file, electronic file. And sometimes when I'm having really moments of doubt, I'll go back to that and think, do you know what? Look what people have said about me. I am all right.
Yeah.
Just remind yourself of that value.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, I have what's called a sparkling jar.
Love it.
So on my desk, I just have a clear jar, which is just, so if anybody kind of like say feedback says something, and what I like is it's clear. Write it on a post-it, pop it in, and you can see it. And the power of being able to see it is really valuable.
What is that called again?
Sparkling jar.
I feel like I'm in Legally
People
Blonde with the
create the sparkling jars.
Yeah.
I love
Legally
it.
Blonde
Yes.
place.
Yeah.
Decorate it with fairy lights. You can put silver confetti inside it too if you want,
Yeah.
whatever you want. But it's that sparkling moments jar.
I like that.
Yeah, I think the key thing for me, and it kind of overlays with what you guys have said, is it's all about reflection. It's about stepping back, taking a breath, look up, because look up switches your brain from emotional away. So we'd like for panic attacks or anything, looking up is great. But I think that self-reflection and looking at recommendations you've had or testimonials that you've had or nice feedback that you've had is really, really important to actually step back and go, do you know what, actually, I did a good job there, I am okay. And I think just you've got to be able to reflect and step back would be my tip.
Yeah,
Definitely.
And I think for me, I agree with everything that's been said. I think for me, if you're experiencing a little bit of overwhelm from it, if you're catastrophizing and it's feeling like it's winning, then what I said about the facts of friends is just bring yourself down and write down what are the actual facts of the situation, because that can really help just bring you down and think, no, this is okay. You know, so I agree with everything else that's been said, but if you're in the moment, I find that works really well.
Absolutely. We'll end it there. I love that. A really positive note to end it on. So before we close the circle, I'd like to say thank you to Catherine, Hayley, Sarah,
Thank you.
and Mandy.
Thank you.
Absolutely fabulous. Really loved it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very much.
Now we're going to close the circle for tonight. See you at the next show.